all changed with the trailers for the SpongeBob movie. I remember seeing ads for this and thinking, hey, this actually looks pretty funny. The day came for me to finally see it, and as someone who at the time knew basically nothing about this franchise, the movie did a great job of introducing audiences to this world and these characters through a few clever lines of dialogue.
Oh, it started out as a simple order, a Krabby Patty with cheese.
Okay, so he works in a restaurant, good to know.
What are you doing in here?
I have to tell you something, Squidward.
Whatever it is, can it wait until we get to work?
Okay, so these two work together and boundaries are a bit of a touchy subject, duly noted.
Hello, I like money.
Okay, this guy likes money. I mean, I guess there was no other way I was going to interpret that.
Krabs is being interviewed by Bert Perkins, and I've never even had one customer!
And from then on, that was it. All of the clues were coming together. And that was the day when I became a SpongeBob fan. From that day, I started actively watching the show and continued to do so for several years. However, despite that, I see a number of people nowadays calling the movie just decent, but not giving it the same level of praise that you hear for the show.
Okay, nobody sees this as a masterpiece, but it certainly captures a simpler time of watching something laid back and goofy.
So with that said, I'd like to bring up what is apparently a bit of a hot take and say, the first SpongeBob movie fucking rules. In my opinion, the comedy in this movie still really sells it for me, even more so as an adult. Similar to the show, the film captures a certain childlike silliness, but with a layer of intelligence, cynicism, and even surprisingly dark elements below the surface. Scenes like SpongeBob and Patrick hyperactively shoveling down ice cream and becoming increasingly delirious, groggy, and even aggressive, all while their burnt-out waiter is just stuck dealing with them in this fucking uniform. All that leading to him waking up the next morning with an ice cream headache that's played more like a hangover. Or SpongeBob and Patrick throwing a bubble party in a dirty bathroom in a bar full of hardened criminals who will kill them if they notice it. So much so that it's apparently an official rule of the bar that all the patrons just have down to memory.
All the babies will be beaten senseless by every able-bodied patron in the bar.
Or the Cyclops, who the film foreshadows early on, only for him to turn out to be a diver. But what I love about it is that even when we, the audience, know that this is just a normal human, the movie still commits to the bit. Back in his shop on land, he never takes his diving gear off, never has any actual dialogue, and just laughs maniacally in this growly monster voice. For all intents and purposes, he's still a giant beast terrorizing the characters that edges just far enough into reality for it to be absurd. I also just love the idea of what this guy is doing. Like, we've seen stories of animals being...
The video game industry has been growing exponentially nearly every single year for 40 years straight. Well, it was until 2022 when everything began to crash and burn. Just today, as of recording, Ubisoft gained $720,000 in value, which would be amazing if they didn't. Just today, as of recording, Ubisoft gained $720,000 in value, which would be amazing if they didn't lose $11 billion in value in just the last few years. To give you a visual demonstration of what that looks like, if this star is how much money they gained, this black hole is how much money they've lost. Except I lied. The black hole is 80 times larger than the star, while the money hole should be 15,000 times larger. 4 decades of hiring hidden talent and publishing landmark titles, only to plummet in both quality and reputation in only 4 years. And it's not just Ubisoft. Gaming as a whole is collapsing in on itself. Over the past few years, growth didn't just slow down, video games have actually been shrinking more and more, leading to worldwide higher-ups cutting funding by almost 80%. How does this happen? How can global studios go from multi-billion-dollar industry Goliaths to laughable industry punching bags in so short a time? How can 40 years of dominance be erased in 3? It's too fast a drop to be explained by one single cause, so maybe we should ask a different question. What happens when an industry whose success is designed around rampantly growing the number of users every year maxes out on how many new people they can grab? When you've dug hole after hole of pure gold for 40 years, but suddenly there's no more space to dig. Today, we're exploring the dramatic implosion of gaming studios around the world and how that may trickle down to even your favorite indie titles. How decades of growth created an impossible bubble where anything other than the line shooting up means record-breaking layoffs every year. And how a small studio might hope to break through in their own way amidst sweeping changes and catastrophic economic conditions far outside their control. I know I set up a lot here, and I promise we'll get to it all, but video game struggling means my wallet is also struggling, so let me fulfill this contractual obligation. Remember that question about the well and digging hole after hole until there's no more space left to dig? If you answered to cannibalize yourself, digging as deep as you possibly can back into the very same well, charging all of your existing players more and more again and again, congratulations are in order, you might be in line for an executive position. This why studios are pushing for more and more monetization is the leading question to ask throughout this whole video, and hopefully by the end we'll reach an answer together that's infinitely more satisfying than just saying they want more money, because of course they want more money. We'll be returning to this question again at the very end. It's actually my favorite part of the video. If you only watch one part, I'd want you to watch that, because I know it's a winding road to get there, but you clicked on an hour-long video essay about video games, so you knew what you were getting into. Got defensive. When it comes to greed, players are very quick to point at Ubisoft, one of the key contributors in the downfall of the modern gaming industry. Much like EA, Ubisoft is a name so tarnished it's become automatic taboo. But it wasn't always that way. In fact, they were celebrated as trailblazers in the industry alongside other renowned companies at the time like Blizzard and Bethesda, which is also funny now. I do want to say, I'm not trying to celebrate this
Dude, fuck off.
downfall. Going from a $12 billion company in 2021 to a $1 billion company in 2025 is a staggering decline. It means people far outside of the decision-making seats lose their jobs. Not to mention how the deterioration of a studio once on top of the world means a deterioration of things many of us hold dear. So I'm talking about this as an examination of the rapidly changing times we live in. Ubisoft's tale is one of stellar developers racing against lofty corporate objectives. And while it seems simple on the surface, the greater story goes far beyond this one company. Founded in 1984 as Guillemot, sorry, Informatique, and rebranding 2 years later to Ubisoft, the French company acted primarily as a video game distributor throughout the 80s, focusing mainly on small projects and local licenses. They were definitely not known for making hit titles. Things really picked up for Ubisoft when they took a chance on hiring a very young developer named Michel Ancel, who catapulted the company into global recognition with his flagship franchise Rayman in 1995. Keep this in the back of your mind. They took a risk, and the company thrived. With both critical acclaim and critical success now in their belt, Ubisoft expanded rapidly, opening dev studios in Montreal, Shanghai, and Germany. And this brand of rapid expansion was just a taste of what was to come. Each decade, Ubisoft seemed to reinvent themselves and continue pushing the envelope of the gaming industry. The early 2000s marked their next reinvention, acquiring the rights to Tom Clancy in 2000 and releasing Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell in 2002, an action stealth game frequently cited on lists containing the best video games, and followed up with sequels in 2004, 2005, 2006, 2010, and 2013. 1 year after Splinter Cell, Ubisoft released the 2003 E3 Game of the Year, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, with sequels in 2004, 2005, and 2010. 2003 also marked the year of Michel Ancel's next project, Beyond Good and Evil, with a sequel in... actually, we'll get to that one. 2004, Far Cry 1, and 2007, their biggest hit yet, Assassin's Creed. A game so enticing, so different from anything out at the time, and Assassin's Creed 2, just a couple years later, took everything that made the original great and did it better. Better story, better characters, better gameplay. Ezio achieved a feat essentially no other protagonist in the early 2000s ever could. He was actually cool. 2009 also marked the release of the major commercial success Just Dance, Ubisoft's foray into a completely different audience. This diversification only served to grow the company further, with follow-ups of course in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, and every subsequent year up to 2025, and if we're lucky, likely beyond. This was Ubisoft's franchise foundation era. It's where they dug their heels in and created the IPs that would carry them over the next couple phases. And following up on the staggering success of Assassin's Creed, the 2010s would be yet another decade where the company would transform. This decade would be the peak of Ubisoft. Michel Ancel returned to direct Rayman Origins in 2011 and Rayman Legends in 2013, critically acclaimed platformers far surpassing the original, with Legends specifically lauded by many as one of the best platformers of all time. Far Cry 3 in 2012, often considered Ubisoft's greatest game ever, blew the door down for the rest of their open world games to walk through. Assassin's Creed Black Flag in 2013, Watch Dogs in 2014, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege in 2015, and The Division in 2016, which was the fastest selling new IP ever at the time. However, while it was their highest peak yet, the golden seeds Ubisoft planted with Far Cry and Assassin's Creed in the early 2010s would be the catalysts for their eventual downfall. It was clear open world domination had become the company's new MO in this new era, but this is also where the cracks started to form. Far Cry 4, while good, did not provide the same sequel caliber upgrade as Assassin's Creed 2 did compared to Assassin's Creed 1. Watch Dogs was riddled with game-breaking bugs, and The Division, despite that incredible launch, failed to fully live up to its massive open-world scope. While the 2010s marked Ubisoft's greatest expansion and largest profits yet, it was also the era where the rapid release fatigue started to slowly reach not just the players, but the developers too. It wasn't understood by the general public at the time, but behind-the-scenes crunch, delayed releases, and diminishing returns with each and every sequel revealed a long-term unsustainability with their publishing model. A publishing model, mind you, that nearly every big studio was also using at the time. At some point, the line can't keep going up at the same pace, but when all of their systems require it to keep functioning, something is going to give. It would work incredibly for now, but in 5, 10 years, maybe not. Make no mistake, Ubisoft was bigger than ever, but the once indomitable giant began to have its reputation slip. Amidst all of these problems taking place in the offices themselves, the company at this point clearly had grown to a point where the desires and wills of the few far outweighed the desires and the wills of the many. And the company saw the writing on the wall, recognizing that if game sales numbers weren't going to exponentially increase to match the exponential growth of the company, something else would have to in its stead. And not long after, they began formally introducing in-game sales, kicking off the modern live service era of Ubisoft as we know it. Microtransaction-riddled multiplayer experiences, online-only requirements for single-player games, and an ever-creeping increase in grindiness to incentivize time-saving purchases from their fanbase, the definition of a Ubisoft game began to change. What was once a compliment of high esteem referring to a quality industry-shaking release now meant the same thing you've been seeing for the past 5 years, but somehow more hollow. Just Dance was just the beginning. While follow-ups like Assassin's Creed Origins in 2017 and Assassin's Creed Odyssey in 2018 sought to dramatically expand the scope of the franchise, their receptions were mixed, with a common critique citing not only their numerous bugs and unfinished features, but how somehow this was still the same game 10 years later. Not only that, this once beloved action-adventure series now had microtransactions galore. Ubisoft started deliberately slowing the game down just enough so that a subsection of their players would get frustrated and open their wallets to spend even more on a time-saving resource pack. A strategy so blatant, most players were understandably frustrated and felt disrespected. This company clearly just saw them as money bags. Sure, the quality of the game might have suffered, but it worked. line must go up, so they'll find a way to make it go up. New year, new release, and if sales aren't improving, crunch the devs, charge players more, cut risky titles, halt investments in smaller devs. The line must go up. Because if it starts to waver, the investors start to get scared. And you can't have the investors scared because all of the executive jobs justify their own existence by justifying their existence. Far Cry Primal, copy and pasting the map from Far Cry 4 likely to meet release demands. The Division 2 failing to reach audience and sales expectations and increasing the push for in-game purchases. Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint with 2 paid currencies and so much backlash before full release that Ubisoft had to pull their time savers grind skipping microtransaction entirely. And keep in mind, these are all for games you already paid for. Some of the audience would say it's not that much, it's optional, it's not a big deal, but unfortunately, this was only the beginning. Assassin's Creed Valhalla in 2022 had much the same buggy release issues as its predecessor, and while they ditched the controversial XP gain booster, paying to bypass an intentional grind was alive and well, with unique armor, weapons, silver, and resources to progress faster. Beyond Good and Evil 2, announced in 2008 and re-announced in 2017, has still yet to come out, with Michel Ancel retiring from Ubisoft in 2020 to focus on his passion for wildlife and animals. His other title, Wild, was also cancelled last year. With their star visionary rightfully earning a happy retirement, Ubisoft's future banked on their established franchises. But those very established franchises were slipping in the public eye. The 2020s rapidly became a free fall for the company. Hyperscape, a promising neo-futuristic battle royale, attempted a Twitch streamer-fueled release campaign, but according to The Verge, dropped to, quote, abysmal viewership just one day after release. Launched in July 2020, the game shut down just 2 years later. Franchise sequels like Watch Dogs Legion, the aforementioned Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Far Cry 6, Rainbow Six Extraction, Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope, Assassin's Creed Mirage, and Prince of Persia The Lost Crown all failed to meet expectations from the fans or failed to meet sales numbers in the rare cases of favorable reviews. All the while, the stock price continued to drop further and further as the 2020s went on. Their original releases, too, were plagued by the Ubisoft-type game moniker, as Avatar Frontiers of Pandora sold decently well and was praised for its beautiful world, but criticized for essentially the same things that people had been criticizing every other Ubisoft game for. Yes, it was cool, but its repetitive gameplay loop basically made it Far Cry 2.0. X-Defiant, a free-to-play FPS game, launched in 2024 with a record 1 million players within 2.5 hours, but failed to keep those players around for its subsequent updates. Like Hyperscape, X-Defiant shut down its servers entirely and is no longer available to play as of a couple months ago. Skull and Bones, which came out just a few months before X-Defiant, boasted a $70 price tag and was advertised as the world's premier quadruple A game, and then fell flat in the market, of course, alongside its in-game store, battle pass, seasonal events, and premium currency. The nail in the coffin for Ubisoft's late 2010s, early 2020s live service era was Star